start recording. Hey, everybody.
Great.
My video is still not working. So that's fun. But we're going to be doing study guides today anyways, so.
He didn't put the question in it, so he'll probably put it tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was just asking so it was the straight or something with the line, what was it called? Veto?
Yeah, the line veto power.
Yeah, so he asked that and to find it and how it connected with how government and the governor and the president are different. And then there was another one, like 3 different terms. So.
Okay. What were the other 2 terms, do you remember?
I don't. That was about like 4 hours ago I took it.
Yeah. And I mean, well, maybe when we're talking, you'll remember the terms and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But, alright. So, there's 3 of you guys here right now. We'll wait a little bit longer for people to join and everything. So, hopefully Brian shows up and stuff like that, because Amber and Joanna are going to be out today. They've contacted me. So, yeah. How are you guys feeling about this section and everything? Because I know we weren't able to talk about like the executive and because I was sick and everything. So if you guys want, we could also talk about that first study guide, but I think it'd be probably smart to just start with the second one and move on. And then you can just, if you have any questions, do you guys have any questions regarding the other 2? Just in general, or how you guys feel? Good? Okay. Cool. Well, let's just start. Okay. Hey, Brian.
I don't think he has his headphones in yet.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
There we go. Okay. I'm just gonna start sharing screen. And how about, I'll just start. We have 8 questions. Okay. So, how about Jordan and Andrea, you 2 do the first 4, and then Joseph and Brian, you do 5 through 8.
Okay.
Oh boy. Yeah, sure, no problem. But I'm warning you now that I spent all weekend out on the range. I didn't have any time to do anything this weekend, so
Okay.
I've only read maybe the first R1, R2 articles.
Okay. So maybe I'll switch you guys around then. Which articles have you guys read? Yeah. Jordan, have you read any of the executive articles?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you read all 4 of them?
I don't believe I got to the 4th one, but to the 3rd one, yes.
Okay. And then, Andrea, which ones did you read?
I read them all, but I don't know if I fully understand them.
Okay.
I'm in the same boat as Andrea.
Alright, okay, so actually for this one, let's just talk about it. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
So let's start with how to explain, what are the different powers and roles of the governor from the president?
Oh boy.
Like we were talking about in class, the governor, doesn't he have the item line veto, which gives him the power to reject specific parts of a bill?
Mm-hmm.
And the president doesn't have that power. He has to reject it as a whole.
Yep. And what else did we talk about in class?
Don't most governors also have like an attorney general or some kind of second that they share their power with?
Yeah, exactly. And that's what we're talking about with the plural executive versus the unitary executive.
Okay, but most state governors do have a second part of their executive.
Yep.
Okay.
And so, can you talk about that a bit more, Brian, about how the attorney general?
So, as far as I understand it, the governor is the one who acts in the role of the executive. He's the one who can approve or disapprove legislation, and who can enforce legislation, very much like the president. But the attorney general is the one who is watching him and making sure that he does so in a way that follows the Constitution, follows the state constitution as well, and is being implemented in the best interest or in the I guess initial meaning or purpose of the legislation.
Yeah, exactly. And so, does that make sense to you guys, Jordan, Andrea, and Joseph?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, yeah, and the president's check to see if like things are constitutional is really the Supreme Court, as we've seen with our dear president's executive orders these past months.
Mm-hmm.
But
now, how does that differ from, a state's version?
So a state's version would be so I'm pretty sure the governor is able to issue kind of executive orders themselves, if I'm not mistaken, but the attorney general acts as another check.
Okay, but then, so I'm seeing that sort of tied between the president and the judiciary branch, but then I guess, is there any difference between that analogy? Like, because the president gets to make appointments to the Supreme Court, but they have to be approved by Congress. Does the governor choose his own attorney general?
I honestly can't remember, which is why we should look it up.
It's I didn't bring my Govt in California today, so that's probably where it is.
No, but it's okay. So how is I'm not spelling attorney right.
OR.
Attorney general appointed. Not India.
Oh, that's a very unhelpful search.
No,
oh wait, there's a wiki.
No, it says right here, Governor Brown has presented me with an opportunity I can't refuse to serve as Attorney General of my home state. Thus, it implies that the governor is the one who appoints the Attorney General. Yes. And so, but I'm pretty sure the Attorney General is whatchamacallit, verified by the California State Senate.
Okay.
And that's how that's the legislative check onto the Attorney General, which is the judiciary side. /executive.
That sounds like we're finding similarities between the two. Aren't we supposed to be looking for differences?
Yeah. Well, there are similarities and differences to them.
Right.
But so the difference is that you have the Attorney General.
Oh, versus the.
Yeah, and that it's versus the Supreme Court.
Oh, okay.
And the fact that the Supreme Court doesn't intercede into the executive branch.
Oh, they don't. They don't.
Well, I mean, they act as a check, but the Attorney General is part of the plural executive branch.
Oh, okay.
Does that make sense?
And then it's called a unitary executive for the presidency
Yeah.
because the judicial branch is completely separate.
Yes.
And while they can look into it, while they can review stuff, they are not what?
They are just a check and balance.
Oh,
They are not a part.
right. Okay.
Does that clarify it?
Yeah.
So instead of
Ooh, 151,000.
what?
That's a
The
salary.
salary.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I have you guys in front of I had the windows in front of that section, so I was just like, where is that? I see it now. Yeah. That's our Attorney General. He lives here. Yeah, but the difference, so, okay, actually, Brian, the difference, I need to clarify myself.
Mm-hmm.
So, the Attorney General is part of the Department of Justice. And, yeah, no, so that's still, yeah, and he'd always be representing the state. So, yeah, no, I was correct. Well, because the Department of Justice is different than the judiciary branch. The Department of Justice wouldn't be technically under the judiciary branch. So, yeah. So, I'm just trying to make sure I'm giving you guys the correct information. I apologize that this is. So, yeah.
So he only gets to serve the same as the president, which is 8 years, and then he's done.
Which is the same as the governor, as you and as we.
So the governor obviously wants to hire someone who's going to agree with him.
Yeah. So they're going to typically, because I'm pretty sure Xavier is a Democrat like Jerry Brown, and he's probably against the death penalty like Jerry Brown as well.
It's almost like a puppet.
Yeah, definitely. And remember the whole patronage concept that we talked about?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what the governor is able to do because he's the one who appoints the state attorney.
Right.
And so the state attorney is separate. So to clarify, Brian, yes, the state attorney is separate from the judiciary branch. Because it is the Department of Justice.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's more on the legal side, like, because I mean, he is there to uphold the state constitution, but it's more so about the laws of the state, if that makes sense. But that's part of the Constitution, so they get added on to. I'm sorry. I apologize. I really should.
It's Monday. It's okay.
Yeah. Thank you. And so. Yeah, it is under the judiciary branch because it's the laws of the land and making sure that they're enacted fairly and equally among all citizens. So, but in like a case, like for example, if there was if somebody was suing the state, it would be like if like a public worker got hurt or something, and so they're suing the state of California, he would be representing the state of California, while a judge would preside over the case. And so that's why that's where I'm kind of a little confused myself. And so I believe that they're separate because they're still the judges, and compared to the attorney. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and in that way, he's still kind of separate and available to a possible check by that branch. So, for example, if he was to violate the law or something, he would be subject to the judiciary. Does that make sense? Okay. Cool. So, with that, and so that is the way that the plural executive kind of works compared to, so because the Attorney General of the United States isn't connected to the president. And so that's why, remember, there were some attorney generals who brought the constitutionality of the Muslim ban to the Supreme Court. So that is how.
Right.
Yeah. That shows that separate. I keep repeating myself with does that make sense, but does that make sense?
Yeah, sorry, I'm also reading to try and catch up.
Yeah, okay. Cool. So with that, are you guys alright with this question? How do you feel?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah. And of course there is the differences in constituencies. As you all know, the governor of California, his constituents are Californians, while the president is the whole nation.
Right.
And, so yeah.
Is there a significant difference to how a governor is elected versus a president? Because I mean, there's no electoral college for governor. It's just kind of right. Isn't the
Yeah.
governor just directly elected?
Yeah. It's a majority. I'm pretty sure simple majority.
Right. So that would be a really key
is.
difference.
Yes.
Um,
No electoral college. I don't.
Well, that's not really a power or role. It's
Yeah.
asking for just the powers or roles.
Yeah, and then also there isn't whatchamacallit, any like primaries or anything. I mean it's within the parties that they decide who's gonna be running as the Democratic candidate or the Republican candidate. It's not really up to there's not multiple Democratic candidates who are trying to win the seat of governor, unless
Right.
they're like, and if they are, then they're going as a third party rather than under the Democratic Party.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll have Green Party, Democratic Party, Republican Party, Independent Party, and the Libertarians, and the Tea Party. And those are all your different candidates for governor.
Mm.
And so, yes. But yeah, so of course, the governor isn't chief of commander in chief of California's militia, because there's no such thing.
Right.
So that's another different power.
Mm-hmm.
As well as you don't see Governor Jerry Brown going to different countries and making international trade deals either. So the president
That's
has
true.
both military power and international power.
Right. The foreign policy thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So those are two other really key differences. Yeah. So are you guys all right to move on to R1?
Yeah.
Okay. So, for those who read it, can you explain Epps' argument that our constitutional system is flawed when it comes to the executive power?
It's Thursdays, right?
Yeah.
I think the major flaw that they pointed out in that reading was the fact that the president has the ability to take action right towards the end of his term, and then get out while leaving those conditions behind as a runaway president, and that there's really no way for the people to hold him accountable at that stage. And that was one of the major problems. And then the other one that I saw was that the the time in between the election and him taking office, that delay can cause problems, as well as cause a bunch of extra work, as opposed to just having the president-elect take office within 1 week, which would mean that he'd have to set up his cabinet members directly or beforehand and announce those as part of the as part of his campaign.
Yeah, exactly. Did any of you other folks find any other problems, or you think Brian covered it all?
I think it was like in the beginning of this article when it was talking about the convention where they came up with the Constitution, and if I'm correct, I guess something that the author was saying about that was that they didn't really spend a lot of time structuring and designing the presidential branch, and the reason for that was because they didn't want to give it, I guess, like too much power, or have it be like this like big thing. So like the thing that they were most afraid of was like another king ruling. So they like.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. No, you go. That's like.
And then didn't they also have another fear of Washington himself?
Yeah, they did. Which I didn't like. It was kind of like implicitly stated, or maybe I just didn't get it. But like his presence kind of caused other people fear, I guess.
Yeah. Because
So
they were like so in awe of him. Because it was like, for them, they were like, their favorite celebrity was in the room with them, and they were like, we can't tell him what to do. Like, he's the first president. He's our leader. He's our general. Like, can we really put that many constraints? I mean, we have to put enough constraints that he's not a monarch, but like, they really wanted to give him, remember, they wanted to give him a lot of power, and then he was kind of like, no. And so that's kind of why. Because, I mean, think back in the 1700s. You don't have that many celebrities out there, or like big, very famous people that are alive with you. So kind of putting yourself in their shoes. And so with that, they wrote a very kind of, as you were saying, a brief section in the Constitution of the executive branch, right?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah. Me or Andrea?
Oh, you.
Me?
You just
Okay.
asked something and you kind of like buzzed out for a second.
Okay, yeah, sorry about that. So I was saying that that's why they wrote a fairly brief section within the Constitution detailing the reserved powers of the president and the implied powers. You guys remember that from the previous study guide. So yeah. Those were kind of what led to what Brian was talking about.
And so because they didn't specify his powers, they kind of left it ambiguous, which is dangerous.
Because if you guys remember in your Ginsburg reading, they talked about how much power FDR was able to accumulate during once he became president with the New Deal, remember? Because of the implied powers of the presidency. And so that's kind of what led to what Epps was talking about with, like, it's not really a lame duck president because he has so much power. He's able to do this stuff without accountability. Um, but yeah. And then, so he talked about some reforms that he would make to make the president more accountable to the legislator and the people. What were some of those reforms? Oops. Am I cutting out? Hello? Okay. I'm cutting out.
The one reform was voters should elect the president.
Yeah. I'm cutting out, so I'm gonna get my cable and connect my computer. Okay, I should have a more stable connection now. Am I coming in more clearly?
Mhm.
All right, awesome. So, what were those reforms, Joseph?
The first one was that the people should elect the president directly,
Yeah, no more electoral college.
and that the president, and once like the vote is, taken in, that the president should take office within a week and not wait such a long period of time.
Mhm. Yeah, and the fact that he would have his cabinet already
Mhm.
selected while he's campaigning, and then
Yeah.
also, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. You were explaining it.
No, go ahead. I want you to explain it. I want
Oh.
you to show your knowledge.
So basically, they were talking about in the article how they wanted to mirror it like the British shadow cabinet,
Mhm.
so that the people would have access to the information of the president's cabinet. So it's not, so they have that information before, as they're voting for him.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I think some people might have changed their minds about who they might have voted for one way or another, depending on who the cabinet would have been on either side. And it would have been interesting to see who, like, Hillary's cabinet would be, for example. I mean, who knows? That might be something that would throw everybody off even more. It could be anything. But yeah, I don't know. And then maybe people being like, oh, he's actually putting Steve Bannon on the cabinet? Or, well, he's not on there anymore as far as Ivanka is concerned. Because apparently that was under Ivanka's suggestion. So much for not letting family influence you. But yeah, sorry, I'm tangenting into criticism. But yeah, and so those reforms would definitely make the president more accountable. I don't know. Would you guys like those reforms, or would you think Epps is on a wrong track, or they could be better?
The idea that having a plural executive might cause problems if there's some kind of dispute between them, because I mean, if they're the ones who enforce and enforce the laws that are written, and
was a plural executive one of the reforms suggested?
Was it? Let's see. Let's see. Congress suspend House legislator. We should divide the executive branch between two elected officials, a president and an attorney general, who would be voted in during midterm elections.
Yes.
I like the idea in general upon first inspection, but and I don't know all of the ramifications exactly, but I see a problem with that in that um, uh, the president is probably the one office that needs the ability to act autonomously, um, because if he's the one who's saying, "Hey, these federal laws apply to all 50 states," he's affecting so many people, and if the attorney general or somebody else says, no, this is not the way you should be enacting these laws, and then goes to try and change them or dispute them, uh, it's going to put a hold on that. And then what do you do in the meantime? How do you enforce those laws in the meantime while they dispute this thing that could be drawn out?
Yeah.
It's kind of going back, and forgive me if I resort to some just maybe a cliche saying that it's better to make a bad decision than no decision sometimes. Um, and I think that the main difference between the president and the governor in this regard is that um, a governor is elected, by all the people himself, and it affects just one state. Um, uh,
Yeah, and as well as the fact that if we have a divided executive on as far as a matter goes, and maybe as far as a crisis, when a decision needs to be made quickly, that could be a big problem, and we could also look weaker to other countries if they
right,
see divisiveness within our
right.
our leaders.
And a governor doesn't have to look good to a foreign power.
Yeah.
So they can kind of squabble over stuff without causing too many problems. But if the executive branch is having to deliberate on something that's of key importance to a real time event happening in some other country,
Hmm.
so
Yeah, and what's interesting is that actually a lot of countries that run on parliamentary systems, they have a prime minister as well as a president. And
right,
depending on the system, depends on who has the most power. Um, but usually there's a power imbalance between the plural executive, and that's kind of what we do also see in the governor. And
mm,
so it's sometimes it's not truly a plural executive when one has more power over the other. So yeah, I just did
mm.
finger guns, but you didn't see me. So
Yeah.
and yes, you should laugh weirdly because I am weird, and that is me, and this is that class. So you know that you've been here this whole semester. um, sorry. Okay, but yeah, are you guys? Do you guys feel comfortable with with our one and everything? All right. So let's go on to presidential power and a modern president. What was this article about?
Was this one about where it started with President Truman
Mhm.
and they were waiting for Eisenhower to take office?
Yeah.
Okay. If I remember correctly, it was about, well, it started with that and saying how Truman was saying how when Eisenhower would get in the office, he was going to be so frustrated because I think he was like a military general before or something like that.
Yeah.
He was so used to giving orders and like having them followed.
Mhm.
Whereas like when you're a president, like you give an order and most of the time nothing happens. Um, and it was criticizing how like I guess the president role or the executive branch was kind of weak in that sense.
Yeah.
Um,
What does the president have to do to get things done?
I don't remember.
He has to talk to members of other branches, specifically like the legislative branch and senators, to help them to get. He needs to talk to them to get them on his side to help push his agenda through. So that's why they need. That's why they usually have to have a strong connection between their party and everything. And that's why we're kind of seeing with like Trump. He's thinking, oh, I'm like a I'm like a CEO. I can just order things just like in general. But he's finding that he knows a little bit because as a businessman he does have to curry favors with among others, but he's still thinking, oh, I'm president, I can just say do this and it will be done. But he's finding it's not so simple. So this article is kind of demystifying the automatic power of the president, because though he can issue an executive order, it doesn't mean it will be directly enforced if he doesn't have good favor among others. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So, R3, the 2,988 words that change a presidency. So, who wrote this speech that was talked about?
It was a group of people. I guess the main one was Bush's speechwriter, but then she had her like own team that put together the speech.
Yeah. And why does somebody else write the president's speeches?
I don't know.
It's impractical for him to write his own.
Why is that, Brian?
Well, I mean, with the amount of stuff that goes into it, and the amount of thought and analysis that has to happen, fact checking, it's a big process.
Yeah.
And if the president is still knowledgeable and needs to put his input, but for the most part, he has to trust his intelligence advisors to get the facts straight, and he has to trust his writers to use diction in such a way that evokes the right thought with as few words as possible.
Yeah. Every
as well
word
as get
needs
his
to count.
right. Because how it's delivered and the content could, and he also talks how they're speaking to multiple audiences, right? They're not just talking to the American people, they're also talking to every other country. They're also talking to their enemies and to, their allies. So.
Definitely. And so that kind of segues us into number 6. What do you think this speech is said to have changed the Bush presidency? When was this? What speech was this?
This is the one after 9/11, right?
Yep.
But this really bought time for him to formulate a plan. It put the American people in the right frame of mind, angry but not too angry, and united in a way that would allow that would put trust in their executive branch, so that when they came out with their plan to handle the situation, it would receive more support.
Yeah, exactly. And what did the reaction of the speech tell you about the role of the president?
It showed that like what the president says is pretty powerful. Like it can influence people in the country.
Yeah, and it's a sense of comfort for a lot of people. I mean, he's our leader. Do you guys remember from like your history classes President Franklin Delano Roosevelt's fireside talks during World War II? So these were these little radio broadcasts that he would do, I think, weekly, that would be broadcast to the whole nation, talking about the war and just kind of talking them through it, you know, just telling them what's going on and everything, and like being kind of soothing in a way, you know, because it's like, okay, this is somebody I can trust. This is somebody we elected to lead us, and he's telling us this information. I can trust him, and I can trust that it will be okay in the end. And so, yeah, and I think definitely this speech after 9/11 was Bush's fireside talk to everyone. And it's called fireside talks because people typically would have their radios near their fireplaces, and so they would sit and listen to the radio next to the fireside. And so, yeah, just that, have that nice cozy little image in your head. So yeah. Oh, nice. I thought it was 6:50 already, but no. Um, so, okay, the Obama memos. Also, we're probably going to go over today, so if you need to leave, you're more than welcome to at 6:50. So, did somebody say something?
That might have been background chatter on my end.
Cool. All right. R4. So, the Obama memos, the making of a post-partisan presidency. Describe the education of Barack Obama into the realities of the presidency. What did he realize as he became president?
Was it about the I could be wrong because this article really confused me, but was it about like the difference, it was like about the Democratic and Republican parties, like I don't know, like he didn't think it was going to be that, I don't know.
Yeah, wasn't he surprised about like how polarized they were?
Yes.
And, like how unwilling they were to even try to compromise?
That's the word I was trying to find.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. Okay, so yeah, wasn't the like, and I mean, it is kind of surprising because you do expect you expect these people to want the best for their own people and to be willing to compromise and try to come to consensus to reach the best possible solution for the situation. But they're so tied to that polarization and that hate that, oh, these other people on the other side, they're evil. They have it out for America. Some of them truly believe that the other party doesn't want good for America, which I think is kind of part of the reason why there is such like division, because they don't trust each other. But it's like I mean, they're all in there trying to do the same job, so it's like, yeah. And so, in what ways did this kind of polarization control how he was able to do the task that he wanted to achieve? For example, Obamacare. What were the problems that he faced? Do you remember who had the majority of the House and the Senate during during the latter parts of his presidency.
Oh, it's the Republican Party, right?
Yep.
Hmm.
And so, what do you think happened every time he tried proposing a bill?
Can we get rejected?
Yeah. On the basis that, oh, it's from a Democrat.
Right.
And that was one of the reasons why we had the government shutdown a couple of years back. Because of that polarization. The Republicans who had the control of the legislative branch did not want to pass the proposed budget. And there was a deadlock because of this polarization. And so things are stalled rather than being let through, which Madison may argue is part of the foxes in the henhouse concept, but there is one thing between competitiveness and working to get the best idea to stalling each other childishly and booing after a speech. That I remember starkly. In 2013, I watched the State of the Union address, which is the speech that the president gives at each of beginning of each year once he's president, kind of outlining what he wants to do with the next year and everything. After Obama made his speech, there was booing during the speech at certain things that he said, which was coming from Republicans. And I just remember being so shocked by that and just being like, these are 50 and 60-year-olds, like 40 to 60-year-olds, and they're booing. Like, how childish is that? These are our leaders, our representatives? And so
Yeah.
I think that's when competitiveness has gone too far. Because
Yeah.
that's beyond professionalism. And so, yeah. Sorry, that was my little rant against polarization. Why can't we all just get along? Yeah. Okay, let's move on. I know why we can't get along. People are stubborn about their ideas. So, and humans are just humans.
No, we're not.
No, we're not. We're robots.
Oh, no, to the previous one. Stubborn about our ideas.
Oh no.
I'm just making a bad joke.
I know. I was playing along, trying to at least. But let's go to number 8. Well, yeah, they talked about different theories of presidential power. Do you guys remember the different ones that they talked about?
Trying to find them right now. This is one I hadn't been able to read. I would assume it's towards the end somewhere.
Yeah. You could also do like Control F. Control F. It should be all of your guys' friend. That's how you search pages. It's really great when you're doing research papers and you're trying to find information on the library and on public journals. Just a quick pro tip.
There's one line here. It says, "Yet our political system was designed to be infuriating. As George Edwards notes in his study of presidents as facilitators, the American system is, quote, too complicated, power too decentralized, and interest too diverse for one person, no matter how extraordinary, to dominate." Obama, like many presidents, came to office talking like a director, but ended up governing like a facilitator, which is what most of the successful presidents have always done.
Yeah. And so, what would be a facilitator versus a director?
I guess someone who just sets the stage for events or things being legislation or bills or decisions to be made, rather than somebody trying to direct the course of the entire, all three branches.
Yeah, think of the difference between me and the professor.
Right.
I'm the facilitator. I give us a direction, but it's kind of given by a different power and stuff like that. And I create a venue for where we're able to discuss thought and material, while the director, the professor, chooses the material in which we discuss.
Right.
And so, which do you think describes our current presidency?
Facilitator.
Yeah, and he's a facilitator who's desperately trying to be a director. Yeah. Are you guys all good on executive study guide too?
Was there any other theories? I mean, that's one theory, is that the president was a facilitator, not a director.
Yeah.
And that was kind of into that other article where, Eisenhower isn't exactly a general as the president. He's more of somebody who needs to convince the other branches to help him along.
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to Weber's forms of authority, which are charismatic, authoritarian, and traditional.
Mm-hmm.
And so those you need to be charismatic to be a director.
Right.
You need to be ultra charismatic to be a director, but if you're kind of charismatic, you can be a facilitator.
Right. Are those the only two presidential theories? Or was there other stuff in here? I'm probably sorry if I'm asking questions that I should probably already know the answer to, but I'm probably not going to get much time tonight to get to it.
Yeah, it's okay. Let us look. Because honestly, I am not too sure. I'm pretty sure those are the only two, but four. Okay, yeah, no, but he's a facilitator of change.
Mm.
And so that makes him, yeah. Yeah, so I mean, really, he only talks about facilitators versus directors.
Right. I did find another line that might qualify. So this is referring to Obama's insistence to be post-partisan, where after he's running, he puts partisanship behind him and looks at everything, not in terms of Democratic, Republican, but in terms of how to, best represent the American people, how to maybe not be as neutral as possible, but just, keep, don't take actions purely based off of your political party. But then this one says predictions that Obama would usher in a new area of post-partisan consensus politics which is
It goes back to like the facilitator of change. Yeah.
right. But then he says there only appears to be one real model of effective governance in Washington, which is partisan dominance. And so it's like you can try to be post-partisan, but you're not going to get anything done.
Yeah.
Unless you have your team fighting for you and pushing things in your direction. Being post-partisan can lose support of your own side, which makes it impossible to fight the other.
So, yeah, I mean, you could, those would be two other competing theories of being a post-partisan president versus a partisan president. And
right.
the fact that, and we would definitely say that our current president is a partisan president because he heavily relies upon his party members to get his agenda pushed through. So, yes. Do you guys want to do the bureaucracy study guide, or are you guys all right with calling it?
What do you think he's going to focus on more?
Honestly, I'm pretty sure he's going to ask you what the differences between a governor and president are.
Right. So go back and check out the governor in California.
Yeah, really review that. And I know that there is a section, paragraph that outlines the distinct differences. I misplaced that book at the beginning of the year, and yeah.
All right. Well,
So
thanks for
that's
the
my own
instruction.
I apologize that today was a bit of a mess.
Oh no, not hardly.
Okay.
But I'm gonna get going, and I'll see if I can find some time to pick up the governing California.
All right, cool. Have a good day, guys. I'll see you tomorrow.
See ya. Thanks.